In 1917, Kew Gardens accepted a striking specimen from the Caucasus Mountains, a plant so grand that Victorian estate owners rushed to place it beside their lakes and rivers. Within 11 years, it had escaped into the wild. Today, giant hogweed is a toxic invader spreading through Britain's waterways. Its sap capable of triggering severe burns, lasting scarring, and even blindness. Cutting it down won't kill it, and a single missed plant can restart an entire infestation. So how did a prized ornamental become a threat that Britain still cannot control? The plant originates in the Western Caucasus, a temperate, mountainous region stretching between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. In this rugged environment, the species evolved to survive harsh subalpine conditions, growing to sizes that immediately captured the attention of visiting British botanists. These collectors saw the giant herb as a prize, sending its seeds back to London to satisfy a growing domestic appetite for the exotic. In 1817, the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, officially documented the receipt of these seeds, listed in the archives under the synonym Heracleum giganteum, and later classified scientifically as Heracleum mantagasianum. This record confirms that the plant did not arrive by accident. Its introduction was a deliberate, curated event. Kew served as the gateway, nurturing the seeds within a controlled botanical setting. At the time, the institution was the center of global horticultural exchange, and this towering new arrival was celebrated for its unprecedented height and striking presence. No one yet anticipated how quickly these seeds would find their way into the wild, establishing a permanent foothold across the country. Victorian landowners valued this towering import as a dramatic ornamental, using its massive stature to decorate grand estate lawns. To create the greatest visual impact, gardeners deliberately positioned the plant along the moist banks of estate lakes, ponds, and rivers, where the flowering heads could reflect off the water. This water edge placement, chosen entirely for aesthetics, created a direct pathway out of cultivation. Riparian soils offered the exact moisture and nutrients the species needed to thrive without human care. Just 11 years after Kew Gardens documented the first seeds, the plant established its first independent foothold. In 1828, the first wild naturalized population was recorded along a watercourse in Cambridgeshire. This escape meant the species had achieved self-sufficiency, successfully germinating, surviving, and producing viable offspring outside the managed garden. The choice to plant this exotic species beside open water transformed a curated botanical novelty into a wild, self-propagating threat, establishing a permanent presence that would soon exploit the natural flow of Britain's river systems. Identifying this invader in the modern British environment requires more than simply measuring its height. Giant hogweed is a biennial or short-lived perennial and a member of the carrot family. During its first year, the plant grows close to the ground as a leafy rosette. When it matures, usually between its second and fifth years, it shoots rapidly upward, reaching a height of 3 to 5 meters. The stem provides the most reliable visual confirmation. It is hollow, thick, and covered in dark purple blotches and coarse white hairs. Branching from this central column are massive, deeply divided, jagged leaves that can reach up to 3 meters across. At the very top, the plant produces a large umbrella-shaped cluster of small white flowers, known as an umbel, which can spread 60 centimeters wide. While these proportions are staggering, size alone is not proof of identification. Several native British species, such as common hogweed and wild angelica, share similar flat-topped flower heads, though they grow on a much smaller scale. Because of the severe physical risks, anyone attempting to identify the plant must rely on official guidance rather than approaching the specimen. For walkers, anglers, and landowners, understanding these distinct visual markers is the first step in mapping the plant's quiet advance along the waterways. The moist, disturbed soils of riverbanks, floodplains, and drainage ditches provide the ideal environment for giant hogweed to thrive. Once established, the scale of the threat shifts from an isolated, towering specimen to an entire connected river catchment. A single mature plant can produce up to 50,000 lightweight, winged seeds. These seeds possess a natural buoyancy, allowing them to float on the water's surface for up to 3 days. During winter floods, rivers act as high-speed transport networks, carrying thousands of viable seeds miles downstream. As floodwaters recede, they deposit these seeds onto newly exposed banks and sediment beds, creating perfect conditions for germination. These seeds can remain dormant in the soil for several years, forming a persistent reservoir. This dormancy means that even if every visible plant along a river is destroyed, the soil itself remains a source for future infestations. While wind and human activity also disperse the seeds, hydrological networks remain the primary corridors for rapid long-distance spread. This process is clearly visible along the River Darwen near Preston. Lancashire County Council first officially recorded giant hogweed in the Darwen catchment in 2006. Over the following 2 decades, the plant quietly expanded its footprint. By 2026, the National Biodiversity Network Atlas documented more than 120 distinct observations within the single sub-catchment. Ecologists and land managers monitoring the Darwen face a complex challenge. Because the river crosses multiple public and private boundaries, a single untreated patch upstream continuously releases seeds, reinfesting cleared banks downstream. As the plant colonizes these accessible riparian zones, it moves directly into areas frequented by walkers and anglers. The physical danger of giant hogweed lies in a silent, chemical interaction that begins long before any physical symptoms appear. Unlike a brush with native stinging nettles, contact with giant hogweed sap produces no immediate pain, stinging, or redness. The clear sap contains organic chemical compounds called furanocoumarins, which are entirely harmless in the dark. A walker or trail clearer can get this fluid on their skin and continue their day completely unaware of the contact. The hazard is activated only when the contaminated skin is exposed to ultraviolet radiation from natural sunlight. This light triggers phototoxic reaction known scientifically as phytophotodermatitis. Under ultraviolet light, the furanocoumarins undergo a molecular structural change, binding directly to the proteins and DNA inside human skin cells. This binding halts the cell's normal replication process and initiates rapid cell death. Because this is a light-activated chemical sequence rather than a direct, immediate poison, there is a distinct latent period. The first visible signs of the reaction typically develop 24 to 48 hours after the initial exposure. This delayed onset means the victim has often forgotten the encounter by the time the skin begins to show the first clinical signs of damage, localized redness, and intense localized inflammation. After the initial redness, the reaction quickly escalates into severe, liquid-filled blisters. These lesions can penetrate several layers of skin tissue, causing painful, burn-like wounds that require clinical attention and sterile dressing. As the blisters eventually heal, they leave behind dark purple or brown hyperpigmentation and significant scarring. This discoloration is not temporary. The affected skin can remain stained for months or even years. The damaged areas also remain highly sensitive to ultraviolet light, meaning subsequent exposure to normal sunlight, even years later, can re-trigger the painful inflammatory response. When the sap contacts the eyes, the consequences are even more severe. The phototoxic reaction occurs on the surface of the eye, causing severe inflammation of the cornea and conjunctiva, a condition known as photokeratitis. This can result in intense pain, light sensitivity, and temporary or permanent loss of vision. Because of these extreme physical hazards, professional clearance teams treat the plant with the same precautions as hazardous chemicals. Ground crews do not wear ordinary gardening clothes. Instead, under strict risk assessments, they must wear full-body protective equipment. This includes heavy-duty waterproof coveralls, chemical-resistant gloves, protective boots, and full-face shields or safety goggles to prevent any sap from splashing onto the skin or into the eyes. For the public, safety depends on complete avoidance. Official guidelines advise never touching, cutting, or clearing suspected plants without specialist training, and keeping children and domestic pets far away from infested riverbanks. If accidental contact does occur, immediate action is urgent. The skin must be washed quickly with soap and cold water, covered completely to block all light, and shielded from ultraviolet exposure for at least 48 hours. For those experiencing symptoms or severe exposure, seeking prompt medical advice from NHS services is necessary to manage the burns and minimize long-term damage. When confronted with an infestation, the instinctive human response is to cut the plant down. However, clearing the visible stems provides only a brief illusion of safety. There is a critical difference between a temporary knockdown and verified eradication. Beneath the surface lies a massive, fleshy taproot that can grow up to 50 centimeters long and 8 centimeters in diameter. This underground organ stores immense energy reserves, allowing the plant to survive severe physical damage. If this root is not severed completely, at least 10 centimeters below ground level, the plant can regenerate and send up new shoots within weeks under favorable conditions. Mechanical mowing is both ineffective and highly dangerous. Using brush cutters or mowers on mature stands pulverizes the hollow stems, launching microscopic droplets of phototoxic sap into the air and onto operator clothing. This creates severe exposure risk for workers. Furthermore, cutting a mature plant too late in the season can scatter thousands of viable seeds along the riverbank, accelerating the very infestation it was meant to stop. While cutting before seed set can reduce immediate seed production, it does not kill the parent plant. The persistent taproot remains intact, waiting to exploit any lapse in land management. This biological resilience makes casual, single-season clearing attempts futile, showing why random cutting fails and illustrating the need for a systematic, multi-year program. Eradication is an active, multi-stage operational program rather than a simple clearance. The process begins with systematic surveys of connected riverbanks to map and locate every emerging rosette before any treatment starts. Where legally and environmentally permissible, specialists apply targeted systemic herbicides such as glyphosate directly to the leaves of young plants. Near watercourses, chemical use is heavily restricted. Operators must secure formal Environment Agency agreements and strictly adhere to product labels and environmental protections to prevent aquatic contamination. For survivors or in sensitive habitats where sprays are forbidden, crews physically excavate the taproots, cutting them at least 10 centimeters below the surface to prevent regeneration. All treatment is timed precisely to destroy the plant in spring, well before flowering and seeding can occur. Because river networks cross numerous public and private boundaries, control demands seamless coordination between Blackburn with Darwin Borough Council, Lancashire County Council, the Ribble Trust, and private landowners across connected stretches. On the River Darwen near Preston, where a coordinated program has run since 2008, managers face the immense physical and administrative burden of securing access and ensuring no single landowner neglects their portion of the riverbank, which would leave an active seed source. This sustained multi-year commitment is where visible progress faces its greatest vulnerability. A dramatic reduction in visible stems is frequently mistaken for successful eradication. In reality, verified eradication requires a minimum of 5 to 7 consecutive years of intensive monitoring with 0 new germinations to ensure the soil seed bank is entirely depleted. The margin for error is non-existent. A single missed flowering plant or a 1-year pause in council funding allows a lone survivor to release up to 50,000 buoyant seeds into the flow, instantly reseeding cleared banks downstream and resetting the eradication timeline. The presence of this established non-native species along British rivers highlights a broader tension in how society perceives ecological dangers. Today, the UK rewilding debate often centers on proposals to reintroduce native apex predators, such as the Eurasian lynx in Kildare and Thetford forests, or the Eurasian wolf in more remote wilderness areas. These proposals frequently generate intense public anxiety over hypothetical animal encounters, even though official risk assessments suggest the actual danger to human safety is negligible. For instance, the 2015 AECOM cost-benefit analysis of proposed lynx trial releases calculated the projected cost of human health risks at 0 across all scenarios, reflecting a lack of documented attacks in comparable European environments. In contrast, the danger posed by the toxic flora, already growing beside popular walking trails, is documented and active. While there are no recorded hospitalizations from wild lynx or wolves in modern British history, regional health data in England indicates that hundreds of people seek emergency medical treatment every year for severe plant-induced burns, with a small portion requiring specialized inpatient care. This stark difference reveals a mismatch in public risk perception, where spectacular hypothetical hazards elicit strong emotional reactions, while a tangible, spreading biological threat is largely tolerated. Analysts note that comparing these risks requires evaluating matching categories, as a confirmed botanical hazard cannot be weighed directly against speculative animal behavior. This division underscores the ongoing legacy of Victorian horticultural choices, the decisions made by 19th century estate owners to plant exotic species for visual impact have left a permanent management burden for current generations. Managing this burden requires consistent local action and funding, yet public attention remains captured by debates over imagined predators. This raises an important question about how societies evaluate environmental hazards. Why do communities focus so much concern on hypothetical risks from the past, while neglecting the real toxic legacy already growing on their riverbanks? While the nation debates the hypothetical dangers of reintroducing apex predators, a silent phototoxic hazard continues its steady march along our riverbanks. Our focus remains fixed on the wild we fear, rather than the toxic legacy we actually created. The true challenge is not managing imaginary threats, but confronting the invaders already underfoot. Let us know your thoughts on this debate in the comments.